Your sister's moving in. Don't make it a big deal, my parents said casually over dinner. No one asked me, just packed up a truck and showed up. But when the front door finally opened, it shattered everything they'd been hoping for. You know that gut-wrenching feeling when your family decides your life for you? Well, mine dropped a bombshell. Your sister's moving in. Don't make a fuss. They didn't ask, they commanded. Then, when they showed up with a moving truck, ready to invade my sanctuary, it wasn't me who opened the door, it was a stranger. My name is Chloe, and I'm 29. My Seattle apartment isn't just where I live, it's my personal victory trophy. For 3 years, it's been my sanctuary, hard-won after battling controlling parents and my perpetually entitled sister, Skylar. But all that peace shattered the moment Mom and Dad uttered those words at family dinner. Not a request, but a decree. Skylar was moving in, and I wasn't to make a fuss. They didn't even bother to ask. They just packed a truck and showed up on my doorstep, expecting me to roll out the red carpet. Oh, if only you could have seen their faces when that door opened, and it wasn't me standing there. Okay, let me rewind a bit and set the scene for you. For 5 years, I've poured my heart into my job at Horizon Creative. Last spring, I finally snagged that senior graphic designer position, and it came with a decent raise. Seattle's housing market is a nightmare, but it was enough to comfortably afford my one-bedroom apartment with a small office in Capitol Hill. Yeah, the hardwood floors creak, and the pipes sometimes make alarming noises, but that bay window? It instantly stole my heart. This place isn't just 4 walls and a roof. It's mine. I've poured my soul into it, furnishing it with secondhand treasures I've slowly upgraded, filling it with plants I've somehow kept alive, and decorating the walls with my own art and pieces from local artists I admire. This apartment, it represents something so much bigger than just a place to sleep. For years, I scraped by, living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes with Craigslist roommates, sometimes crashing on my best friend Leah's couch when things got truly desperate. Ramen was a nightly dinner staple, more often than I care to admit. Breaking into the graphic design world is brutal. It meant low-paying gigs and clients who thought exposure was fair payment. So now, every single rent check I write, it feels like a silent, defiant middle finger to everyone who ever doubted my artsy career and said it would never support me. My social circle is small, but it's fiercely loyal. Leah has been my ride or die since college, a force of nature, an elementary school teacher with endless energy and absolutely no filter. Our weekly wine nights are sacred. We dissect everything from dating nightmares to workplace drama. My coworker, Leo, often joins us with his boyfriend, Alex. These are my people. They know the real me, they've seen me at my absolute worst, and they still choose to hang out. Then there's my family. Specifically, my sister, Skylar. She's 32, but still acts like she's in college. Growing up, she was the undisputed golden child. My dance recitals? Often missed because Skylar had a cold or needed help with homework. My 10th birthday party? Canceled because Skylar, then 13, got attention and Mom and Dad were too stressed for a house full of kids. Meanwhile, Skylar's 13th birthday? Professional DJ, catered food. This pattern, this relentless favoritism, it just kept going into adulthood. Skylar has never held a job for longer than 8 months. Her resume reads like a guided tour of the city's retail and restaurant scene. She always quits because a manager had it out for her, or the environment was toxic. And yet, somehow, she always has the latest iPhone and designer clothes. Her relationship history mirrors this chaos. Her latest boyfriend, Julian, lasted almost a year, a personal record for Skylar. He seemed decent enough, a stable guy in construction management. I wasn't surprised when she called me crying that they'd broken up. Apparently, he was controlling because he suggested they create a budget together. The real issue? My parents enable all of it. When Skylar needs rent money, which is often, Robert and Diane transfer it, no questions asked. When she gets fired, it's always the employer's fault. My parents, Robert and Diane, raised us in a comfortable suburban home about an hour outside the city. Dad's in insurance, Mom's a part-time school administrator. They're not wealthy, but they're stable, a stability they achieved through meticulous financial planning. The irony, right? Their parenting style? Traditional, with a heavy dose of manipulation. Family loyalty is paramount, and any disagreement is seen as blatant disrespect. Mom is a master of guilt trips. Seriously, she could teach a seminar. "We just want what's best for you" really means, "we know better than you do." Dad prefers the direct approach, stating his opinion as fact and expecting absolute compliance. Challenging him usually just shuts down the conversation entirely. Which brings me to that fateful family dinner 3 weeks ago. I usually try to have dinner with my parents twice a month, partly because I genuinely want to keep a relationship and partly to keep the crushing guilt at bay. This particular Sunday, Mom made pot roast, my absolute favorite. That right there should have been my first major red flag. The meal itself was fine, the usual interrogations about my job and thinly veiled questions about my dating life. Then came dessert, homemade apple pie with vanilla ice cream. As Mom served it, Dad cleared his throat, that familiar sound that always signals an impending announcement. "Chloe," he began, his tone instantly putting me on edge, "we need to discuss something important." My heart started thumping. "What's up?" I tried to sound casual, while my mind raced, cataloging when I'd last called, visited, wondering what family obligation I'd forgotten. "It's about your sister," Mom interjected, placing a hand on Dad's arm. "She's going through a rough patch. Julian broke up with her," Dad continued, his voice laced with annoyance, as if Julian was the one making a colossal mistake. "Kicked her out of their apartment." I wasn't surprised, just felt a pang of sadness for her. "That's tough," I said. "Is she staying with you guys for now?" The look they exchanged made my stomach absolutely drop. "Well, that's what we wanted to talk about," Mom said, her voice taking on that sickeningly sweet quality that instantly told me I was not going to like what came next. "Your sister's moving in with you." I nearly choked on my pie. "What?" "Your sister's moving in. Don't make a fuss," Dad stated firmly. "She needs a place to stay, and you have that extra room you use as an office. It makes perfect sense." Perfect sense? It made no sense. They hadn't asked. They were telling me, as if my apartment, the one I paid for with my own money, was suddenly community property. Did Skylar ask about this? I managed, struggling to keep my voice even. "She's embarrassed," Mom explained. "You know how proud she is. But she needs family right now." "I can't just. It's already decided," Dad cut me off. "The truck is packed. She'll move in this Saturday." Just like that. In the space of a 5-minute conversation over apple pie, my sanctuary was being invaded, my boundaries trampled, and my opinion deemed utterly irrelevant. My fork clattered against the dessert plate. My appetite? Gone. "Wait a second." I finally managed. "You can't just decide this without even talking to me first." Dad's eyebrows shot up, that look he'd used to intimidate me since childhood. "We're talking now." "No, you're telling me, after you've already made the decision." Heat flushed my face. "My apartment is tiny. It's a 1-bedroom with a small office, not a 2-bedroom. You have that little office space," Mom chirped, as if I'd forgotten my own floor plan. "Skylar doesn't need much room. She can make it work." "That's my workspace," I explained, fighting to keep my voice level. "I work from home 2 days a week. All my supplies are there. My drawing tablet, my reference books. You can move that stuff into your bedroom," Dad dismissed with a casual wave of his hand. "Plenty of people work from their bedrooms." I took a deep breath, trying a different angle. "Having another person will increase all my expenses, utilities, internet, groceries. I just got this promotion, but Seattle isn't cheap. Skylar will contribute," Mom assured me, though her utter lack of eye contact screamed that even she didn't believe it. "Once she gets back on her feet." "And when will that be?" I pressed. "How long is this arrangement supposed to last?" Another uncomfortable glance exchanged between my parents. "Well, we can't put an exact timeline on it," Mom hedged. "Until she's stable again." Which could be weeks, months, years. I finished the last word sharper than I intended. "That's what family does, Chloe," Mom said, her voice dripping with that martyr tone I knew so well. We help each other without counting the cost or watching the clock. I would think you'd want to be there for your sister during this difficult time. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, his gaze fixed on me. This isn't a negotiation. Skylar needs help, and you're in a position to provide it. End of discussion. As if summoned by her name, the front door creaked open, and Skylar walked in. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her makeup, of course, was flawless. She scanned the table, instantly picking up on the tension. "You told her?" she asked quietly, hovering in the doorway like some Victorian heroine about to faint. "We're discussing it," Mom said, reaching out to pull Skylar to the table. Skylar sat down, immediately reaching for a glass of water. "I know this is a lot to ask," she said, her voice trembling just slightly. "I wouldn't if I had any other option." "What happened with Julian, exactly?" I asked, genuinely trying to understand. Skylar's eyes welled up. "He's been so controlling about money lately, checking all the credit card statements, questioning every purchase. Then he found out about the Nordstrom card and just exploded. Said I had a shopping addiction." She sniffled delicately. "Can you believe that? Just because I like nice things, I could believe it." Oh, I absolutely could. This wasn't the first time Skylar's spending had caused problems. Last Christmas, she'd asked to borrow my credit card for one small gift and maxed it out on designer boots and a handbag for herself. "And your apartment?" I asked. "It was in his name," she admitted. "He gave me 2 weeks to find somewhere else." "What about your job at the boutique?" I probed. Last I heard, she was working at some upscale clothing store. Another tear slipped down her cheek. "They let me go. Something about too many tardies, which is so unfair because the bus is always late." The full, horrifying picture was becoming clearer. This wasn't just a bad breakup. This was Skylar's life imploding on multiple fronts. Again. "Honey," Mom interjected, "we've already promised Skylar she can stay with you. We would take her in ourselves, but you know, your father's allergies have been acting up and the spare bedroom is being painted." Dad's mysterious allergies always conveniently flared up at times like these, and that spare bedroom had been being painted for roughly 3 years. "I tried staying with Sarah," Skylar added, referring to a friend I'd met once or twice, "but her boyfriend is there all the time, and they fight constantly. I barely slept. And I've already helped her pay off some of her credit card debt," Dad tacked on, as if this contribution absolved him of any further responsibility. "The rest she'll handle once she's employed again." The walls were closing in. Every objection I raised was met with a counter, every concern dismissed. The decision had been made, cemented, long before I even walked through their door tonight. "I need to think about this," I finally said, standing up. "This is a big change, and I need some time." "There's nothing to think about," Dad replied, utterly firm. "The truck is rented. We'll be at your place Saturday morning at 9 a.m. I made my goodbyes shortly after, declining offers of leftover pie and additional layers of guilt. The drive home was a blur of raw frustration and bitter betrayal. My phone buzzed relentlessly with texts from Skylar. "Can't wait to be roomies again, just like when we were kids. Do you think my queen bed will fit in the office? Should I bring my Vitamix, or do you have a good blender?" Each message twisted the knife, ratcheting up my anxiety. Memories flooded back, sharing a room with Skylar as teenagers, my journals read, clothes borrowed without asking and returned stained, friends monopolized. Now it would be my professional equipment at risk. My carefully cultivated peace, utterly disrupted. Instead of heading home, I instinctively pulled into the parking lot of Analog Coffee, my usual haunt. I desperately needed to clear my head before returning to the apartment that felt tainted, already invaded. The comforting aroma of espresso and the soft hum of conversation started to ground me as I ordered my latte. "Chloe, is that you?" I turned to see Leah, my lifeline, sitting by the window, grading papers. "Hey," I said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Mind if I join you?" "Please do." She pushed her stack of essays aside. "These summer vacation stories are melting my brain. You look like someone just killed your cat. What in the world is going on?" And so I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush of raw frustration and rising panic. Leah listened, her expression morphing from surprise to utter outrage on my behalf. "They can't just decide this for you," she declared when I finished. "It's your apartment, your name on the lease." "You know my parents," I sighed. "Then unmake it for them," Leah said firmly. "Tell them no." "I've tried saying no to my family, Leah. It never works." I stirred my latte absently. They either wear me down or I give in just to avoid the conflict. And now they've already promised Skylar. Leah was quiet for a moment, tapping her pen against her mug. Then, her eyes lit up in that way that always signaled either a brilliant idea or a truly terrible one. "What if," she began slowly, "the office wasn't available?" "What do you mean?" I asked, bewildered. "I can't remodel in 5 days." "No." She leaned forward, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "But what if someone else was already using it?" "My cousin Noah just moved to Seattle for a job at Amazon. He's staying in an Airbnb while apartment hunting. What if he became your temporary roommate?" I blinked at her. "You want me to move a stranger into my apartment to prevent my sister from moving in?" "Not a total stranger. He's my cousin. I've known him his whole life." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a guy, about our age, with dark hair and glasses. "He's quiet, clean, works long hours, and he's desperate for a more affordable place to stay while he looks for something permanent." It was a crazy idea, completely inappropriate, potentially disastrous. "Tell me more," I said. Leah's coffee shop suggestion snowballed faster than I could have ever imagined. By the very next evening, I was sitting across from Noah at a Thai restaurant near my apartment, enduring what felt like the world's most rushed roommate interview. "I really appreciate you considering this," Noah said, pushing his glasses up slightly. "The Airbnb prices here are insane, and everything happened so fast with the job offer, I didn't have time to secure housing first." Noah was tall and lanky, with a quiet voice that perfectly matched Leah's description. A software developer. He'd just started at Amazon after relocating from Chicago. And, unlike the stereotypical tech bro, he seemed thoughtful, a bit reserved. "Leah speaks very highly of you," I said, picking at my pad thai. "But I should be upfront. This would be a temporary arrangement. The office is small, and while there's a futon that folds out to a full bed, it's not exactly spacious." "That's more than fine," he assured me. "I'm planning to find my own place within a couple of months anyway. I just need time to get to know the neighborhoods and save up for the ridiculous deposits around here." We talked practicalities. Rent. He offered more than I expected. Utilities, kitchen privileges, bathroom scheduling. The more we talked, the more reasonable the whole crazy idea seemed. Noah worked long hours, often staying late at the office. He wasn't much of a cook but was meticulous about cleaning up after himself. He didn't party, had no pets, and his main hobby was reading science fiction novels. "I should also mention," I said, lowering my voice slightly, "the real reason I need a roommate quickly is complicated. My sister was supposed to move in this weekend. My parents decided this without asking me, and I'm trying to prevent that from happening." Instead of the judgment I half expected, Noah simply nodded, understanding. Leah mentioned something about family pressure. "I get it. My mom still tries to plan my life from 1,000 miles away." "You don't think it's terrible of me to block my sister?" I asked, my voice small. He considered this for a moment. "I think it's your apartment and your life. Sometimes family doesn't understand boundaries." By the end of dinner, I had a new temporary roommate. Noah came by the next evening to see the apartment, and by Wednesday, just 3 days after that fateful family dinner, he had moved in his essentials. Clothes, laptop, books, not much else. The office transformation happened quickly. I consolidated my work materials, moving my drawing tablet and most important supplies into a corner of my bedroom. It wasn't ideal, but it was workable for the short term. Noah even helped rearrange the furniture to maximize the small space. By Wednesday night, the office had become a functional, if compact, bedroom. Meanwhile, my phone continued its relentless buzzing with messages from my parents and Skylar. I responded vaguely, neither confirming nor denying Saturday's moving plans. Dad called twice, but I let it go to voicemail, texting later that I was in meetings. I knew, deep down, I was only delaying the inevitable confrontation, but each passing day gave Noah more claim to the space. You'll have to tell them eventually, Leah pointed out during our Thursday wine night. We'd moved it to her apartment to give Noah some space. I know, I sighed, refilling our glasses. I'm planning to call them tomorrow night. I just needed to get everything settled first. How's it going with Noah? Any red flags? I shook my head. Honestly, he's the perfect roommate so far. Makes virtually no noise, cleans up after himself, and even brought home a French press coffee maker for the kitchen as a thank you gift. Told you he was a good egg, Leah said, looking smug. The quiet ones often are. It's weird though, I admitted. I've spent 3 years creating this perfect solo space. And now, in the span of a week, I've got a roommate. Even if it's to prevent a worse roommate situation. Sometimes the devil you choose is better than the devil thrust upon you, Leah said with mock wisdom. Or, in this case, the angel you choose versus the demon sister. Skylar's not a demon, I said automatically, the lifetime habit of defending her kicking in despite everything. She's just a lot of trouble, Leah muttered into her wine glass. Back in my apartment that night, I found Noah reading on the couch, a cup of tea on the coffee table. He started to get up when I entered. Don't move on my account, I said. Plenty of room. He settled back down as I kicked off my shoes. How was wine night? Therapeutic, I answered, flopping into the armchair. Leah sends her love, by the way. She texted earlier to make sure I wasn't secretly an axe murderer, he said with a small smile. Apparently, she's having second thoughts about setting you up with a relative stranger. Are you an axe murderer? I mean, not currently, he replied. Too much effort. I prefer my job's slower method of soul destruction. I laughed, genuinely surprised by his dry humor. First week at Amazon that bad? Let's just say I understand why they have crying rooms. He marked his place in his book. How about you? Ready for tomorrow's family confrontation? I groaned. Not even slightly. Part of me is tempted to just not be here when they arrive. Would that help in the long run, though? He asked gently. No, I admitted. It would just delay the inevitable and probably make it worse. I chewed my lip thoughtfully. I should call them tonight. Give them a heads up. Want me to make myself scarce for that conversation? I considered the offer, then shook my head. No need. I'll take it in my room. But I didn't make the call that night. Or the next morning. Each time I picked up my phone, I found a reason to put it down again. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment. But in truth, I was avoiding conflict, just as I always had. Friday evening arrived, and still no direct communication about the changed situation. Noah and I were sharing a pizza and watching a documentary when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't forget, we'll be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow with Skylar's things. Please make sure the office is cleared out. Love you. I stared at the message, anxiety churning in my stomach. Noah glanced over, raising an eyebrow. They're still coming tomorrow, I said, showing him the text. I never told them. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath. I guess I'll be having an unexpected family reunion in the morning. Do you want me to be out for that? Noah asked. I can make myself scarce for a few hours. I considered this, then made a decision that would change everything. Actually, I said, straightening my shoulders, if you don't mind, I'd like you to be here. In fact, I think you should answer the door. Saturday morning dawned under gray, drizzling skies, typical Seattle weather that perfectly mirrored my internal storm. I'd barely slept, endlessly replaying conversations in my head, imagining every worst-case scenario. Noah and I were at the kitchen counter, drinking coffee, an island of calm before the deluge. You sure about this? He asked, glancing at the clock. It was 8:45 a.m. No, I admitted, clutching my mug like a lifeline. But I'm out of options and time. We could still call them, he suggested. Give them a heads up. I shook my head. They'd just try to talk me out of it, or worse, show up anyway and demand you leave immediately. At least this way, they'll be too shocked to have a prepared response. Noah nodded, adjusting his glasses. For what it's worth, Chloe, I think you're doing the right thing. Standing up for yourself isn't wrong, even if it feels uncomfortable. The doorbell rang at 8:52 a.m. Earlier than expected. My heart leaped into my throat. "They're early," I whispered, an unnecessary statement, panic bubbling up. Through the window, I could see Robert and Diane's silver SUV double-parked, and behind it a small rental truck, presumably packed with Skylar's belongings. Noah set down his coffee. "I can still stay in my room if you'd rather handle this yourself." For a brief, desperate moment, I was tempted to take that offer, to retreat into old patterns and face the conflict alone. But something had shifted in me over the past week. Maybe it was the realization that I'd found the courage to take control of my space in a totally different way. Or maybe it was the simple, powerful fact of having an ally right there beside me. "No," I said firmly. "Answer the door." Noah nodded and walked calmly to the entrance while I positioned myself just out of immediate sight in the kitchen. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time, followed by a loud knock. I heard the door open and held my breath. "Can I help you?" Noah's voice was polite, perfectly calibrated to sound confused, exactly as we discussed. There was a moment of complete silence. "I think we have the wrong apartment," Robert's voice finally said, uncertainty clear in his tone. "We're looking for Chloe Maxwell." "This is Chloe's apartment," Noah confirmed. "I'm Noah, her roommate." Another beat of stunned silence, then Diane's voice. "Roommate? There must be some mistake. We're her parents. This is her sister, Skylar." I could picture the scene perfectly. Dad's face reddening, Mom's bewildered expression, Skylar's mouth hanging open in pure shock. It was my cue. I stepped around the corner and into view. "Hi, Mom."
"Dad."
"Skylar. You're early." Robert's eyes darted between Noah and me, confusion morphing rapidly into anger. "What is going on here? Who is this man?" Before I could answer, Diane pushed past Noah into the apartment, her gaze immediately falling on his belongings. The stack of books on the coffee table, the laptop on the desk in the corner, the jacket hanging by the door. "Chloe Jane Maxwell," she said, using my full name as if I were still a child. "What have you done?" Skylar remained in the hallway, her expression a rapid-fire succession of shock, hurt, and then fury. "You got a roommate to keep me out?" Her voice rose dramatically on the last word, causing the door to apartment 4B to crack open as my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, peeked out curiously. "Can we please take this inside?" I said, mortified at the public spectacle. "Mrs. Henderson, sorry for the noise." "No problem, dear," she replied, clearly not meaning it, and in no hurry to close her door. Robert stepped into the apartment, his posture rigid. "Young man," he addressed Noah directly, "I don't know what Chloe has told you, but there's been a misunderstanding. We need you to leave immediately." Noah stood his ground, calm but firm. "Sir, I've signed a rental agreement with Chloe. I live here now." "Rental agreement?" Robert's voice ratcheted up. "Chloe, what is he talking about?" Skylar chose this precise moment to fully embrace the drama, dropping theatrically onto the hallway floor. "I'm going to be homeless," she wailed. My own sister would rather have a total stranger than help family. A door across the hall opened, and now Mr. Davies was watching too.
"Perfect."
"Is everything all right out here?" Mr. Mendez, our building manager, appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the commotion. "We've had noise complaints." 5 minutes into this confrontation, and I'd already managed to involve half the building. My father was glaring daggers at Noah. My mother was inspecting the apartment, like she was cataloging violations. Skylar was creating a full-blown scene in the hallway, and the neighbors were getting a free Saturday morning show. "Everything's fine," I said to Mr. Mendez, my voice strained. "Family discussion. We're taking it inside now." "Please do," he replied firmly, "or I'll have to ask your visitors to leave the premises." "Everyone inside," I said, gesturing to my family.
"Now."
Reluctantly, they complied. Noah closed the door, mercifully shutting out the curious neighbors. The small apartment suddenly felt even smaller with 5 people crammed inside. Sit down, I said, pointing to the couch and armchair.
Please.
My parents took the couch while Skylar, after a dramatic sniffle, perched on the arm of the couch, as far from them as possible. Noah moved to stand by the kitchen counter, giving us space while remaining a steady, present force. The moment of truth had finally arrived. I took a deep breath, unclenching my fists at my sides. The apartment fell silent as everyone waited for an explanation. The only sounds were the faint ticking of the wall clock and Skylar's occasional, theatrical sniffles. I need everyone to listen to me. I began, my voice, to my own surprise, remarkably steady. Really listen, without interrupting. Robert opened his mouth, but Diane placed a hand on his arm, silencing him. I took that as my cue to continue. For as long as I can remember, what I want, what I need, has always come second in this family. The words felt dangerous, like stepping onto thin ice, but I pressed on. When we were kids, Skylar's dance recitals were family events, flowers, dinner celebrations. Mine? They were attended, if it was convenient. My 10th birthday was canceled because Skylar got detention, but her 13th had professional catering and a DJ. That's not fair. Diane started, but I held up my hand. Please let me finish. She pressed her lips together, clearly unhappy, but she complied. This pattern never stopped. In college, when I needed help with tuition, I was told to take out loans because you were busy helping Skylar with her maxed-out credit cards. When I graduated and was living on ramen just to make rent, you were paying Skylar's security deposit on her 3rd apartment in 2 years. I turned to look directly at my sister. Skylar, I love you. You're my sister. But this isn't about not wanting to help you. This is about the fact that, once again, Mom and Dad decided what would happen with my life, in my home, without even asking me. Skylar's expression was hard to read, part hurt, part defiance, but also something else, something that looked almost like understanding. I have worked incredibly hard for this apartment, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I saved for months for the security deposit. I painted it myself. I bought furniture piece by piece when I could afford it. This is the first place that has ever been truly mine, and I have the right to decide who lives here. I gestured toward Noah, who stood quietly by the counter. This is Noah. He's Leah's cousin and my new roommate. He moved in 3 days ago. You did this deliberately, Robert said, his voice dangerously low. To shut out your sister? Yes, I admitted, refusing to sugarcoat it. I did. Because for once, I decided to prioritize what I needed instead of what everyone else wanted from me. So, you'd rather have a stranger in your home than your own sister? Diane asked, her voice thick with disappointment. He's not. I began, but Noah stepped forward slightly. If I may, he said politely. I understand this is a family matter, and I'm an outsider here, but Chloe and I have a legal roommate agreement. I've paid rent and moved my belongings in. I'm happy to give you privacy to discuss this further, but I wanted to make the situation clear. Robert turned his glare on Noah. And who exactly are you? Where did you come from? How do we know you're not taking advantage of our daughter? Dad, I exclaimed, mortified. It's a fair question, Noah replied calmly. I'm Noah Ramirez. I recently moved to Seattle from Chicago for a software development position at Amazon. I'm Leah's cousin. You can call her to verify that. I needed temporary housing while I searched for an apartment, and Chloe needed a roommate. It was mutually beneficial. Mutually beneficial, Robert repeated sarcastically. While your own sister is left without a place to live. That's cold, Chloe. I didn't raise you to be so selfish. The word selfish hit me like a slap. How many times had I heard that? Every time I tried to set even the smallest boundary. When I couldn't babysit Skylar's goldfish because I had a final exam. When I couldn't lend Mom my car because I needed it for work. When I couldn't co-sign Skylar's lease because my own credit was still recovering from student loans. It's not selfish to have boundaries, I said quietly, my voice firm. It's not selfish to expect to be asked rather than told. It's not selfish to want some control over my own living space. We're family, Diane said, as if those 2 words trumped all other considerations. Family helps family. I would have helped, I replied, if you had asked. If you had respected me enough to have a conversation instead of an announcement. If there had been any consideration of what this would mean for my life and work. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Noah shifted slightly, then spoke again. I think I'll step out for a bit, give you all some privacy to talk.
He looked at me.
Text me when you'd like me to come back. I nodded gratefully, and he slipped out the door, leaving me alone with my family. The apartment felt both emptier and more pressurized without his calming presence. As soon as the door closed, Skylar stood up. Well, this is just perfect, she said, tears welling in her eyes. My little sister hates me so much she'd rather live with a total stranger. I don't hate you, Skylar. I sighed, suddenly exhausted.
This isn't about you.
Not really. It sure feels like it's about me, she shot back. Where am I supposed to go now? The truck is rented. All my stuff is packed. You could stay with Mom and Dad, I suggested, a hint of steel in my voice. Dad's allergies seemed to come and go conveniently. Robert's face reddened. Now, wait just a minute. No, she's right. Skylar interrupted, surprising all of us. She turned to our parents, suddenly animated in a way I hadn't seen before. Why exactly can't I stay with you? The spare room has been being painted for 3 years now? Diane looked utterly flustered. Well, it's your father's allergies have been particularly bad lately, and… That's bullshit, Skylar said flatly. Skylar. Diane gasped. Language. No, I want to know. Skylar pressed on. Why push me onto Chloe? Why not help me yourselves? Robert and Diane exchanged uncomfortable glances. We thought. Robert began, then stopped. You need to learn independence, Skylar. You're 32 years old. You can't keep bouncing from crisis to crisis, expecting others to catch you. I blinked in surprise. This was not the direction I had expected this conversation to go. So, your solution was to force me on Chloe? Skylar asked, incredulously. How exactly does that teach me independence? We thought. Diane tried again. You and your sister could support each other. She's always been so responsible, and you could help with rent. The truth dawned on me slowly, then all at once. You weren't trying to help Skylar by sending her to me, I said quietly. You were trying to help yourselves. You're tired of bailing her out, but you feel too guilty to cut her off completely. So, you thought you'd make her my responsibility instead? The silence that followed confirmed every suspicion. For the first time, I saw my parents not as the all-powerful authorities of my childhood, but as flawed, tired people who had simply run out of solutions. Skylar laughed, a short, bitter sound.
Wow.
So, nobody actually wanted me. That's just great. She turned away, wiping at her eyes, and I felt a surge of sympathy despite everything. For all her drama and self-centeredness, this had to hurt. I'm going to wait in the car, she said, her voice thick with tears. Figure out what you're doing with my stuff. The 3 of us remaining, Robert, Diane, and I, sat in an incredibly uncomfortable silence for a long moment. We were trying to do what's best for everyone, Diane finally said, her voice small, barely a whisper. By making decisions for everyone without consulting them, I replied, my voice steady. That's not doing what's best. That's doing what's easiest. Robert sighed heavily, suddenly looking much older than his 58 years. We've supported Skylar through 3 evictions, 5 job losses, and more relationship drama than a soap opera. We're exhausted, Chloe. We thought maybe if she had your influence. So, you volunteered me for the job without asking. I finished for him. Because it's easier to steamroll me than to set boundaries with Skylar. Neither of them denied it. I'm not going to be your solution, I said firmly. I love you both and I love Skylar, but I won't set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Not anymore. Robert stood up abruptly. We should go figure out what to do with the truck and Skylar's things. Diane followed his lead, gathering her purse. This isn't like you, Chloe, she said, her voice dripping with sorrow. The daughter I raised would never let her sister struggle. The guilt trip was so predictable I almost laughed. The daughter you raised is standing right here, Mom. I'm just finally speaking up for myself. They left with minimal goodbyes, the atmosphere thick with disappointment and unresolved tension. As the door closed behind them, I sank onto the couch, emotionally drained, but also experiencing a strange, light feeling I eventually recognized as sheer relief. The confrontation I'd feared for so long had happened, and I was still standing. The apartment was still mine. And for perhaps the first time in my adult life, I had set a boundary with my family and held it. Despite the residual guilt and pressure, I was about to text Noah when there was a soft knock at the door. Thinking he might have forgotten his key, I opened it without checking the peephole. Skylar stood there, alone, eyes red but dry. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. "Just us." I hesitated for just a moment before stepping aside to let her in. She entered cautiously, as if she were now a guest rather than the entitled sister who had expected to move in without invitation. "Mom and Dad left?" I asked, closing the door. She nodded. "They're sitting in the car, probably plotting their next move." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Dad's doing that thing where he taps the steering wheel and mutters to himself." I knew exactly what she meant. The familiar gesture father made when his plans were derailed. Despite everything, I found myself smiling too. "Do you want some coffee?" I offered, moving toward the kitchen. Noah bought a French press. "Sure," she said, perching on the edge of the couch. "He seems nice." "Leah's cousin," I said. I busied myself with the coffee preparation, grateful for the distraction. "Yeah, he just moved here from Chicago, works at Amazon, and you just happened to find a roommate the exact week I needed a place to stay." I paused, then decided honesty was the only path forward. I called Leah in a panic after dinner Sunday night. She suggested Noah as an alternative to you moving in. Skylar nodded slowly, absorbing this. "So, you really didn't want me here that badly." I turned to face her. "It wasn't about not wanting you, Skylar. It was about not wanting to be told what would happen in my own home. It was about years of feeling like my needs always came second." I poured the coffee and brought 2 mugs to the living room, settling into the armchair across from her. Noah had texted that he was getting breakfast at the cafe down the street and would be back in an hour, giving us plenty of time to talk. Skylar wrapped her hands around the mug, but didn't drink. "You know what's weird? When Mom and Dad told me I'd be staying with you, I didn't want to." This surprised me. "You didn't?" She shook her head. "I wanted to say no. I knew your place was small, and we haven't exactly been close lately, but they insisted it was the only option, that you'd be fine with it." She trailed off, staring into her coffee. It was easier to go along with it than to argue. "I know that feeling," I said quietly. "I'm sure you do." She finally looked up at me. "We've both been playing our assigned roles for so long, haven't we? You're the responsible one. I'm the mess. You achieve, I fail. You save, I spend." I'd never heard Skylar speak with such self-awareness before. "When did you become so insightful?" A small, sad smile. "Therapy. For the past 6 months, actually. Julian's idea originally. My shopping." She hesitated. "It's not just liking nice things. It's an addiction. I buy things when I'm anxious or sad or empty. The high lasts about 5 minutes. Then the guilt sets in. But by then, I've already spent money I don't have." This was more honesty than Skylar had shown in years. "I didn't know you were in therapy. I didn't tell anyone." I was embarrassed. The perpetual screw-up finally admitting she screwed up. She took a sip of coffee. I was making progress too. Had a budget. Was sticking to it, mostly. Then Julian found the Nordstrom card I'd hidden and realized I'd lied about stopping. He said he couldn't trust me anymore. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "That must have been hard." "It was." She set down her mug. "The truth is, Chloe, I'm jealous of you. I always have been." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Jealous of me? But you were always the favorite." "The favorite screw-up," she corrected. "They expected nothing from me and everything from you. And you delivered. Good grades, solid career, financial independence. Meanwhile, I'm 32 and back to square one again." I'd never considered our family dynamic from this perspective before. Had my resentment of being held to higher standards blinded me to the damage done by expecting nothing of Skylar? For what it's worth, I said carefully, I was always jealous of how easily things seemed to come to you. The social stuff, making friends, dating. You were always the fun one, the pretty one. Skylar laughed. God, we're a mess, aren't we? Each envying what the other had, neither of us seeing the whole picture. A comfortable silence fell between us, more honest than any conversation we'd had in years. So, what now? I finally asked. What are you going to do? She sighed. I don't know. I can't stay with Mom and Dad. That would be a disaster for my therapy progress. Most of my friends are partiers who would be terrible influences. What about Sarah? I prompted. You mentioned staying with her before. She and her boyfriend broke up 2 days ago. He moved out, but she can't afford the rent alone. She's looking for a roommate. Skylar looked thoughtful. Actually, I hadn't considered it because Mom and Dad were so set on me staying with you, but maybe that could work. I encouraged. You said you were friends, right? Since college. She's one of the few friends who knows about my therapy and shopping issues. She'd be supportive, not an enabler. I could see the wheels turning in Skylar's mind as a plan began to form. Her place is closer to downtown, too, which would be better for job hunting. Speaking of which, I ventured, what kind of job are you looking for? Skylar tucked her hair behind her ear, a gesture I remembered from childhood when she was feeling uncertain. I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. I'm good with people, even if I've been unreliable in the past. My therapist suggested looking into something with more structure, maybe administrative work. I might know someone, I said. One of our clients at Horizon is always looking for front desk staff. The pay isn't amazing, but it's steady, and they're pretty flexible if you're upfront with them. Skylar's eyes widened slightly. You'd recommend me? After everything. You're my sister, I said simply. I want to help. Just not by having you take over my home without asking. She nodded slowly. I understand that now. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. A text notification pinged on my phone. Noah, asking if it was okay to come back yet. I replied affirmatively, then looked back at Skylar. I think this might be the first real conversation we've had in years, I observed. Probably since before college, she agreed. It's nice. Weird, but nice. The door opened, and Noah entered, carrying a bag from the bakery downstairs. He hesitated when he saw Skylar. Sorry, should I? It's fine, I assured him. Noah, this is my sister, Skylar. Skylar, this is Noah, the roommate, Skylar said, standing to shake his hand. Sorry about the drama earlier. Noah accepted her handshake with a polite smile. Family is complicated. I get it. I should go, Skylar said. Mom and Dad are probably wondering what's taking so long, and we need to figure out what to do with all my stuff in the truck. Let me know about Sarah, I said, and I'll email my contact at Meridian Publishing on Monday about that position. Thanks, she said, and after a moment's hesitation, stepped forward to give me a quick, awkward hug. For the coffee and everything else. After she left, Noah set the bakery bag on the counter. That seemed to go better than expected. Surprisingly, yes, I agreed, still processing the monumental shift in our sibling dynamic. We actually talked like adults. And your parents? I sighed. That's going to take longer. They left angry and disappointed. Mom's probably already drafting the guilt trip text messages. True to prediction, my phone buzzed with a message from Diane less than an hour later. I hope you're happy with your decision. Skylar is devastated. Call when you're ready to apologize. I showed the text to Noah, who winced sympathetically. Classic guilt technique. One of her specialties, I agreed. A week ago, that would have worked on me. I considered the question.
Now?
I'm sad they're upset, but I'm not going to apologize for setting a boundary. The next few days established a surprisingly comfortable new pattern. Noah and I settled into a roommate routine that just worked. He was often gone before I woke up and worked late most evenings, but we developed a habit of sharing coffee on weekend mornings. He was tidy, respectful of my space, and unexpectedly easy to talk to once his initial reserve faded. Skylar texted to let me know she was moving in with Sarah temporarily, and I followed through, connecting her with my contact at Meridian. To my genuine surprise, she landed an interview within days. My parents, on the other hand, maintained radio silence, except for a terse group text announcing that Sunday dinner would be postponed until further notice. It stung, but I recognized the tactic for what it was, an attempt to make me crawl back, begging forgiveness for my selfishness. Instead of giving in, I used the opportunity. Seeing how therapy had helped Skylar, I started working with a therapist myself, delving into the family patterns I'd accepted for so long. Our sessions helped me understand that my parents' controlling behavior and my habitual compliance weren't just personality traits. They were a deeply dysfunctional system that had shaped all our relationships. By the third week after the confrontation, Skylar had started her new job at Meridian. She reported cautiously positive progress. "This structure helps," she texted. "Having set hours and clear expectations. And I opened a savings account that's harder to access than my checking. Baby steps." It was Leah who finally broke the stalemate with my parents by inviting all of us, including Noah, to dinner at her apartment. "Neutral territory," she explained when I questioned her motives. "And I'll be there to referee if needed." To my surprise, my parents accepted, as did Skylar. And somehow, on a rainy Saturday evening a month after the confrontation, we found ourselves seated around Leah's dining table. The atmosphere was tense but civil. "This is delicious, Leah," Diane said, breaking an awkward silence. "Did you make the sauce yourself?" "Noah did, actually," Leah replied, nudging her cousin with her elbow. "He's the chef in the family." All eyes turned to Noah, who looked embarrassed by the attention. "It's just marinara, my grandmother's recipe." "It's very good," Robert said stiffly, the closest thing to approval he'd shown all evening. The conversation limped along through dinner, carefully avoiding any mention of the conflict, until Skylar, of all people, addressed the elephant in the room. "So, are we going to talk about what happened, or just pretend everything's normal while radiating awkwardness?" Diane's fork clattered against her plate. "Skylar, please." "No, she's right," Robert said, surprising all of us. He set down his napkin and looked directly at me. "We owe you an apology, Chloe." I nearly dropped my water glass. In 29 years, I could count on one hand the number of times I'd heard my father apologize for anything. "Your mother and I have been doing some thinking," he continued, "and some talking with a professional." He said the last word as if it tasted strange in his mouth. "You're seeing a therapist?" I couldn't keep the shock from my voice. "Family counselor," Diane clarified quickly. "Just a few sessions. Pastor Jim recommended it." "The point is," Robert pressed on, "we've recognized that we may have been overly directive in our approach." "Controlling," Skylar translated. "The word is controlling, Dad." He frowned but didn't dispute it. "We thought we were doing what was best for both of you," Robert continued, pushing Chloe to be responsible, protecting Skylar from consequences. "But we can see now that we've done neither of you any favors. We love you both so much," Diane added, her eyes glistening. "We never meant to hurt either of you." "I know that," I said softly, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "But impact matters more than intent sometimes." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "We're trying to learn that. It's not easy to change at our age." "Tell me about it," Skylar said with a wry smile. "I'm having to unlearn 3 decades of bad habits." The tension in the room eased, replaced by something tentative but hopeful. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we were talking. Really talking, perhaps for the first time. As I looked around the table, at my sister with her new determination, my parents with their halting attempts at change, Leah with her satisfied smile at seeing her plan work, and Noah, the quiet catalyst who had unknowingly set this whole transformation in motion, I felt something shift inside me. The anger and resentment that had fueled my stand against my family was mellowing into something more sustainable, a quiet, steady conviction in my own worth and boundaries. We had a long way to go, but for the first time, it felt like we were all walking in the same direction. 3 months after that fateful Saturday when a stranger opened my door instead of me, my life has transformed in ways I never could have predicted. Noah, initially a temporary solution to a family crisis, has become a permanent roommate and one of my closest friends. His quiet presence and unwavering respect for boundaries help me recognize what healthy relationships actually look like. We've settled into a comfortable routine of shared meals, occasional movie nights, and a mutual understanding that sometimes we both just need our space. I've even introduced him to some of my coworkers, expanding both our social circles. Skylar has surprised everyone, perhaps herself most of all. After starting at Meridian Publishing, she received her first performance review with no tardiness or absences, a personal record. She and Sarah signed a year-long lease on their apartment, and Skylar has maintained her therapy appointments consistently. She still struggles with her shopping impulses, especially during stressful periods, but now she texts me when she feels the urge instead of surrendering to it. Last week, she proudly showed me her savings account balance, modest, but growing steadily. My parents have been the slowest to change, which is understandable. Decades of established patterns don't transform overnight, but they're trying, in their own way. The family counseling sessions continue, and they've made visible efforts to respect my boundaries. Sunday dinners resumed after a 6-week hiatus, now with new ground rules. No unsolicited advice, no criticism disguised as concern, and most importantly, no decisions made for others. The first dinner was awkward, with Diane visibly biting her tongue several times and Robert retreating into silence when uncomfortable topics arose. But each gathering has gotten progressively easier. Last Sunday, Dad actually asked for my opinion on his retirement investment strategy instead of telling me what I should do with my own finances. A small step that felt monumental. My own healing journey has been more internal, but no less significant. Through therapy, I've begun to recognize how avoiding conflict had become my default mode, even outside my family. I said yes to projects I didn't have time for, accepted blame that wasn't mine, and swallowed my opinions to keep the peace. Learning to stand firm without aggression or apology has transformed not just my family relationships, but my professional life as well. Last month, I negotiated a proper raise instead of accepting the initial offer with gratitude, something the old Chloe would never have dared. What I've come to understand is that true family, true connection of any kind, must be built on respect for each other's autonomy. The idea that family means sacrificing your needs for others is a harmful myth that serves no one. My parents thought they were showing love by solving problems for us, but they were actually preventing us from developing the skills to solve our own problems. Skylar thought she was being loved when she was actually being infantilized. And I thought being a good daughter meant compliance when what my family really needed was my honest voice. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to let people face the consequences of their choices. It's not cruelty, but respect for their capacity to grow. When I refused to let Skylar move in, it wasn't rejection, but an opportunity for her to find her own solution, which she did. One that has served her far better than our parents' plan ever would have. The irony isn't lost on me that my parents' attempt to force their solution actually catalyzed positive change for everyone involved. Their unwelcome truck parked outside my building that rainy Saturday morning didn't deliver what they intended, but it delivered exactly what we all needed, a crisis that forced us to confront patterns too long ignored. I look around my apartment now, still my sanctuary, though differently configured with Noah's books mingling with mine on the shelves, and feel a peace that comes not from avoiding conflict, but from surviving it. From standing in my truth, and discovering that relationships that can't withstand honesty aren't relationships worth preserving in their current form. The journey continues, of course. Old habits resurface, especially in moments of stress. Mom still occasionally slips into guilt trip mode. Dad still struggles to express vulnerability. Skylar still has days when the shopping apps call her name. And I still sometimes find myself swallowing words I should speak. But now we recognize these patterns when they emerge. And that recognition alone is powerful. If you're facing similar struggles with family boundaries, know that standing firm isn't selfish. It's often the most loving choice you can make, both for yourself and for those who need to grow. Remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most healing outcomes. And the most uncomfortable growth leads to the most authentic connections. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and I wish you courage on your own path to healthy boundaries and genuine relationships.